the most bullish chart in crypto. We're going to take a look at that in a minute. But first, let's take a look at the markets as they have closed. The Dow basically flat, down 0.1%, S&P down 0.8, almost 1%, NASDAQ down 1.5%. As the news continues to come in about the economy with mixed earnings between Walmart looking good, Target not looking so good. Other retailers are going to be reporting, but in general, the economy hanging in there. And the Fed coming out, Fed speakers are coming out. Waller says he's open to a 0.5 point rate hike, but again, it's too soon to talk about pausing or pivoting. Same thing with the Fed's daily. Mary Daly, she came out and said rates rising at least another percentage point, but pausing is off the table. So the Fed's coming out with their messaging, forget the pause, forget the pivot. And you know, the last time the Fed pivoted was the markets were down at the bottom of the pandemic. And in 2018, when credit markets were cracking, and before that, it was 2009 financial crisis. There was no pivot then, but that's when the Fed started the QE, zero interest rates, things like that. Of course, fallout continues with the FTX, Gemini, BlockFi, Genesis, all halting withdrawals, and as the contagion continues to flow through the crypto space. So generally, when one has a cough, FTX, all of the rest are affected, and we'll see how all this continues to shake out. So let's get to the most bullish chart in Bitcoin. Here it is right here. This is a bullish chart. Everybody's talking about bottoming, what a bottom looks like, what a V-shaped recovery looks like. And this has put in a nice W bottom with a V-shaped pivot right out of there that a lot of people are looking for on Bitcoin. So what chart is this? This is Bitcoin right there. When you invert a scale, a lot of times it gives you clarity of what the next moves are. So when I show you this, do you think this is a bottom that's putting in or a drive for the next range? So when you look at it inverted, what does that look like? Looks like a bottom has been put in and it's driving for that next range of resistance right in here. So that's a pretty interesting perspective to take a look at. Let's take a look at the moving averages here. And on Bitcoin, you can see well below the 200-day moving average, below the 50, below the 100 now. And again, we've looked at prior times where Bitcoin rejected off the 200, broke below the 100, found that as resistance, broke down, rejected off the 100, broke down, rejected, broke down, rejected, broke down. So that is major resistance for Bitcoin right now. You can see the 50 and the 100 kind of, the 100's on top, 50 below, kind of leveling out a little bit. We had a little cross here. And what I've been looking at is this price action in 2018, right in this area here, where Bitcoin rejected off the 200, broke down, lost the 100, broke down, rejected off the 200, lost the 100, broke down, lost the 100, and 100 became resistance all the way till final capitulation. Moving averages crossed up right here, leveled out right here before that final drop, just like we have right now. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just saying looks very familiar, right? History doesn't need to repeat, but it's just interesting how the setup is the same. My thesis is this area right here looks a lot like this area right over in here. So I feel like maybe we've fallen off the cliff and we're kind of right in this area right now before that final drop, as we wait to see what else, what else the fallout from all this looks like. Here's Bitcoin on the weekly here. And as you can see, there's nothing, super bullish about this weekly chart, still well below the 200-week moving average. Not something that you typically see happening in Bitcoin. Typically, once these, 50 and 100-week moving averages cross, that's typically the bottom's behind you and it moves forward from there. Crossed here, bottom, definitely not moving forward from here. We put in a lower low prior to the low, after Bitcoin put in a lower low prior to the low of the moving averages crossing, that normally would indicate in other cycles that that would be your macro low for the cycle. And then you should continue up from there after this cross. That has not happened. So again, this time is different. I know a lot of people are looking at, all these different custom indicators, things like that, custom charts, custom indicators, and saying, every time in Bitcoin's history when this happened, that was the low, but it's violated that, just like we showed on the hash ribbon buy indicator. that, Bitcoin has violated the previous low that was put in by a lot, not even a little bit, but by a lot. And we don't even have a buy signal on the weekly right now. Bitcoin is setting up for maybe a little green closing if it can hold out throughout the week, but we'll have to see what happens. And it's interesting times. The interesting thing is, one of the things that could play in the favor of Bitcoin in terms of holding this level, of course, this is a major bear flag that's being put in right now, kind of like we saw back in 2018, right in that last little area there. Nice little, bear flag after this first drop was kind of put in right there as well. A little bit of a pennant before that drop. But one of the things that could support price and prop price up is all of the contagion with the exchanges and people pulling their coins off of exchanges. So generally, when that happens, how else are you going to sell your Bitcoin? When you're pulling it off of exchanges and things like that, it has to be peer-to-peer at that point, which is what it was created for. But without using the exchange to do that, you have to do it other ways. So with everybody pulling, or a lot of people pulling their coins off of exchanges and not selling because they don't want to leave it on an exchange or expose themselves to risks of an exchange to sell their tokens, that could be one thing that could hold price up here for a while because there's no liquidity, but at the same token, that dries up liquidity in terms of the availability. So that can kind of prop price up as well. So very interesting scenarios that are unwinding here. Again, this time is very different than any time in the past. The fundamentals are very different. This is not just normal Bitcoin cycle behavior potentially, although these regions do look a lot alike. So it's really, really interesting, and we'll just have to kind of wait it out and see what happens. And again, a lot of it is based on traditional markets and what traditional markets do. And as you can see, this little area here, markets are trying to figure out which direction they're going to move with all of the economic data coming in, the Fed coming out, talking the markets down. So it looks like the markets are trying to put in a reversal. VIX is trying to reverse this move here, which would drive prices. Dixie's kind of holding up a little bit here. The 10-year still dropping. That's interesting with the 10-year dropping, but obviously a major point of support right here that we're in and testing to look for a potential bounce to reverse on that. This has taken some pressure off of interest rates, but still not going to really affect demand in the housing market, as this is the time of the year when there's not much inventory. People pull houses off the market. Not very many buyers this time of year. Everybody's getting ready for the holidays and traveling, and the spring market is when it's really going to count. So we have a very interesting setup from here on out to the end of the year, where, like I said, the investment managers want to hit their bonuses, fund managers want to hit their bonuses. So there's a lot of incentive to drive the market, push the market. So maybe we'll see one more leg down, take out those lows that we put in October, or test them, and then maybe put in a nice little rally towards the end of the year, or come down near those lows, put in a rally. So again, a lot of it's going to depend on that inflation report and more earnings reports, end of the year earnings, earnings in between now and then, inflation report, what the Fed's response is to that. But if there is potential to rally, and which in order to do that may need to drive the market down in order to set it up to rally into the end of the year to hit those bonuses. So that's a potential setup that could be happening and taking place. So that'll be something I'll keep an eye on, and we'll just have to see how that unfolds. So this is what I'm looking at. I'll see you in the next video.